Hello, hello. My name is Ben, and welcome to Little Dead Aliens. This is the show where we talk about the X Files and horror. And with me today is Tyler from Fear Coded. We're going to talk about the episode from season one, Beyond the Sea. Just some like stuff that doesn't matter to anyone but me, but Beyond the Sea and Genderbender are switched in the order that I released them, Little Dead Alien episodes, because of I just messed up my dates. So, just for everyone to know, I understand that the chronological order that they released as X Files episodes, and I just messed up. So, just getting that out there. But hello, Tyler. Welcome.
Hi, Ben. Thanks for having me on. I'm so excited to talk about Beyond the Sea and the X Files. I feel like I'm becoming like the roving X Files reporter because we've talked about X Files on Fear Coded. Um, I've been on Gimmicks for the X Cops episode of the X Files, where it's like an episode of Cops, and that was a lot of fun. And now here I am. So I've got like the trifecta of X Files podcasting going on with Glitterjaw. So when next time we see each other at Glitterjaw HQ, Ben, I'm going to make sure that I have that like a picture of myself on the wall, and it's going to say like most X Files guest occurrer.
Nice.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm glad you're here. I always like having the fear coded folks here because you guys are the other Glitterjaw horror people, so it's always fun. Tell us a little bit about your history with the X Files and horror.
Yeah. So I have talked about this a little bit on Fear Coded and Gimmicks, but basically I watched the X Files back in the '90s. I wasn't like a religious watcher or anything because I was a kid, and that was not really like appointment television. But I do remember reading like there were like novelizations of episodes that you could get from the Scholastic Book Fair. So I remember getting one of those and reading it. Now I actually have a very distinctive memory of sitting on like a countertop in an elementary school classroom, and my copy of the book was sticky for some reason. But also I was like 10, so kind of every other thing that 10-year-olds touch is sticky. So I guess that kind of tracks. But I really liked the show. I had the action figures of Mulder and Scully. I had their movie attire when they're in the Arctic. So like the cold weather gear. I loved the cell phones that they were using. I remember I was very obsessed with that and thought they were so cool. And then I watched the movies. Kind of fell off for a long time after that. Like once I hit my teen years, and X Files kind of went from like a really great show to like it's past its prime. Um, but then as I got older, and then in my 20s and now in my 30s, I've really gone back to the X Files as something that both reminds me of my childhood, but also is like, God, like the government's so fucked up. And these people are trying to reveal the truth of how fucked up the government is. And it's like kind of cathartic to watch and makes me feel less alone in the sense that it's just like, fuck, man, like things just keep getting worse, and we're trying to find the truth and get it out there, but people are hell bent on trying to hide that and put up a fiction instead. And so watching the X Files now, it's like this is great. This is aged really well in some respects, not so much in others. I did just listen to the gender bender episode, Ben, and that's one of the episodes that probably has not aged too well in the last 30 years. But I love the X Files, so I am very excited to be here to talk to you about it.
Nice. That's interesting. Well, first of all, I lived for Scholastic Book Fair. It was like
Yeah.
the best day ever. And then they would send the little papers before to,
Yes.
like, show what was gonna be there, and I would, like, circle everything I wanted, and
Hmm.
my mom was like, "You're not getting all of that," but yeah,
Well, yeah,
loved
mine
that.
mine too. My mom was even a teacher, and she was just like, "You could pick like 2 books."
Yeah, but that's interesting because you're the first person who's mentioned, like, it being, like, a sort of a tangent show that you were into and, like, had the action figures and read the books and stuff, but it wasn't, like, a huge thing. That's really interesting. And have you always loved horror?
Yes and no. I've been kinda, like, intrigued about horror for most of my life, and then I didn't really get into, like, actually watching horror until, like, college. But there were some horror movies sprinkled in there, but it was mostly like older stuff that my parents really liked. So like Hitchcock movies, my family really loved those. So those were kind of like early exposure to horror, but like the actual like R-rated modern day horror movies. Um, I watched the scene where the T-Rex attacks the trucks in Jurassic Park when I was like 4 years old, and that changed my brain chemistry forever. So, and then immediately afterward, I had to hide behind my grandma when Dennis Nedry got eaten by the Dilophosaurus because it was too scary. And even today, I'm still a little like unnerved by that scene because it's just so brutal. But that like Jurassic Park, I feel like is like the gateway drug of horror for a certain subset of millennials. And then I watched The Faculty when I was older. Then I was forbidden from watching like really scary movies like Scream by my family, kind of all over the place. And then I watched Alien Resurrection at my grandparents' house. Then I was obsessed with that. And then my grandparents were like, there's more than just this movie, right? And I was like, what? And we would go to Blockbuster, rented them all. I loved it, and then just kinda, like, got quietly obsessed. Like, that was around the time I also started going online more, so I wouldn't talk to my family so much about, like, "Oh, I love Alien, this is so good," because then my family would be like, "Why are you watching that? It's so scary and gross." So instead, I would go to the internet and people would be like making fan websites and stuff about Alien or like alien action figures or whatever. And I was kind of like, I guess that was like my first real exposure to like super nerdy sort of stuff too. So horror's kind of always been a through line. It's just a matter of like how significant of an impact it's had on my life that kind of vacillates over the years.
Nice. Sort of same. I didn't get really into horror until probably my, like, late 20s is when I really started, like, watching it all the time.
Hmm.
But, like, being 4 and seeing Jurassic Park, like, that is a mind fuck because like, that's when you're really into dinosaurs. That's
Hmm.
what like, you the dinosaurs look so real even today as an
Yeah.
adult. So, like, you had to like yeah. I mean, I saw Jurassic Park in, like, high school. So but as a 4-year-old, that's crazy because 'cause you're like,
Yeah.
"These are real dinosaurs that are
Hell
really
yeah.
eating people."
And then I
Um,
would like, because I grew up in Florida, my grandparents had a pool out back, and some evenings, like in the summertime, I would go out swimming back there, and it would just be like really quiet. And I was like, a dinosaur could totally show up at any moment and eat me. Like a T Rex could just show up over above that house and eat me, and I'm so vulnerable in this pool.
that's
But that
amazing.
was, yeah, it was so cool.
Have you read the book, Jurassic Park?
Yeah, I got really into so Jurassic Park became my hyperfixation when I didn't know what a
Nice.
hyperfixation was until I was maybe like 14 or 15. So I remember in 6th grade, I think I read Jurassic Park 2 or 3 times in 1 year. And I read The Lost World like once, because I wasn't quite as into it, as I was with the Jurassic Park novel. But it was still like that 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 first book, like, blew me away, man. That was quite the read.
Those books are great. I just brought it up because the Nedry scene in the book is, like,
So much
even more
worse.
intense and, like,
Yeah,
maybe one of the scariest things I've ever read. Like,
yeah.
to this day, like, it's so like, yeah, that
Yeah,
seems really
because it's
intense in
talking
the
about,
book.
like, he's holding his insides in his hands, he's trying to put them back, and
Yeah.
that's psychotic, man. Michael Crichton, what was going on in your brain, dude?
Yeah. Um, okay, so, and I also like to ask, sort of get to know you question, that's particular to you, and since you, co-host Fear Coded, I was curious what movie that you guys have covered on Fear Coded would you most like to watch with Mulder and Scully?
Honestly, I mentioned Hitchcock earlier, but I think a Hitchcock movie would be the best thing to watch with them. I'm so torn between Psycho and The Birds because we really enjoyed both. I think we loved Psycho more than The Birds on Fear Coded, but we still really had a great time with both movies. I think probably Psycho. I just want to see like how Mulder, I could just imagine Mulder getting like really into like the Anthony Perkins performance and stuff. And then Scully is just there like This is so outdated. We don't have this. This is such Freudian psychology that is popular in the 60s. And it's in the early 90s. So she would probably also be like, we know more about Freudian psychology now, so we're better than that, but we're still doing Freudian psychology, as opposed to today when I think most like psychiatrists or medical doctors who have some sort of specialty like Scully does in psychiatry or psychology would probably be like, "Oh my god, you got to be kidding me! This is so outdated." But I think Psycho would be a lot of fun to watch. I think that would be a good time.
That's very yeah, good answer. Just get a bunch of snacks and do a double feature.
Well, fuck yeah, that's a great idea. I would love that.
I'm always down for a double feature.
Same.
Okay, so let's talk about what happens in this episode. I'll do a brief recap. So this episode, Beyond the Sea, we start with Scully and she's had her parents over for dinner. They leave, and we get the sense from her interactions with her father after the dinner that their relationship is a bit strained and she doesn't really get what she wants out of the relationship from him. He's very guarded. He's like a military guy. He's like a colonel or something, right?
I think so, yeah.
He's played by Major Briggs from Twin Peaks, and I feel like
Yes.
every episode this season has been had some kind of callback to Twin Peaks. Maybe that's just because I love Twin Peaks and I see Twin Peaks and everything, but
Same.
this is, very direct because it's Major Briggs, who is one of my favorite Twin Peaks characters.
Mhm. Mine too.
So awesome. Yeah, he's great. So they leave. She falls asleep on the couch watching TV. She wakes up and she sees her dad in the chair across from her, and his lips are moving. She doesn't hear anything, and she's like sort of still in like waking up mode. So she's like, "I thought you guys left. Where's mom?" And then the phone rings, so she gets up and she answers the phone. It's her mother telling her that her father just died. He had a heart attack, and she looks back over the chair. He's not there, and she's very confused. We
Mhm.
then I don't remember when it happens that we see the kids get kidnapped from the car.
It's after that title break.
Okay, I thought so. So we see these 2 kids get abducted. They're in a car, like, making out, and someone comes to the window and is pretending to be a cop, and then, I think he shoots one of them, and then he kidnaps them both, and then we go to the office where Mulder is looking into cases that are similar to these kids that have been kidnapped, and he tells Scully, she shouldn't be there, and she's like, "I need to work." So he is telling her that a man that he helped put away by profiling him and saying like, "Oh, he's a killer and he shouldn't be released," is on death row, and he got a stay of execution the first time he was supposed to be executed. And now he is saying that he has psychic powers and knows where these kids are and is willing to help find them if they will prevent him from being killed. So they go to see this guy, and I don't remember his name. I'm really bad.
Luther Lee Boggs.
Right, Oggs, okay. So they go to see him, he's very creepy. Mulder is not buying it. He's like, "I believe in psychics, but I don't think this dude is a psychic." And Scully's like, "Well, that's kind of crazy to say." But they go and, before this, we see her father's funeral, and they play Beyond the Sea, the song, which is her parents' song. Um, And after they talk to Boggs, Mulder brings like a piece of his old shirt or something and gives it to him. And he's like telling them all these details based on the shirt. And Mulder is like, "Well, this is my shirt. You're a fraud." But then he starts humming Beyond the Sea and calls Scully Starbuck, which is what her father called her. And so she believes him. And she then puts together the signs that he gave them as she's driving back, and she finds a place where the kids had been held. And Mulder's like, "Well, how did you find them?" And she tells Mulder the truth, but she lies in the report. I don't know. I guess that's not really important to the plot. But anyways,
But I did think it was kind of important for Scully as a character when that happened. Because I guess we'll get into it more when we're talking about the movie stuff, but Scully is like very Clarice Starling inspired, like especially in this first season. She's very Clarice vibes, and this whole episode is very Silence of the Lambs vibes. So I thought the fact that she did choose to lie to the police about that was really interesting for her character because it's kind of the first time that we're like, oh, Scully is doing something morally questionable or ethically questionable. Um, and I think that adds to her like some dimensionality to her and goes on to make the episode and her performance in it like so fascinating.
And Mulder calls her out on it. He's like, it gets sort of upset because he's like, "You lied to them. So, it's okay if spooky Mulder, puts his stuff in the reports, the kind of paranormal stuff, but it's not okay if you do it." And he's kind of calls her on it. And she's just, you know, whatever.
So I think after um, they have that heart to heart. They decide, like, okay, well, Boggs is asking for a deal, and we know what it is. He says that he's willing to help if it gets him a stay of execution. And I think they try to entrap him by listening on his phone call because he gets the one phone call out of jail every week. And they go and listen to it. And instead of him calling the accomplice, or the big quotation marks around accomplice, but it could be the person who has kidnapped these college kids, and it ends up being that he is calling Mulder's phone because Mulder, being the one who initially put him away, now is also kind of like a target and adds to that ambiguity of whether Boggs is telling the truth. And um, he says over the phone, like, "Why don't you believe me? Dana believes me." And I think he even sings a little bit more beyond the sea, but I might be making that up.
Right. Okay. And then,
I think so. I think after I'll jump in.
sorry.
I told you that we're gonna jump back and forth like this. I knew it was gonna happen, which is fine. So after that happens, I believe they then have to try and find out, more information from Boggs because now they're kind of like playing into it, right? Like they're hoping that he will reveal like who is his accomplice, reveal more of himself, really kind of give himself away with these predictions that he's making, right? And part of that is him telling Mulder at one point, like, okay, the guy that you're looking for, he's in like a warehouse dock situation. But Mulder, look out for the white cross. I could see your blood on the white cross. And they're like, whatever. Like this guy's making shit up. But Scully is still kind of like, I don't know, maybe we should be open to this possibility. And sure enough, Mulder gets shot and his blood splatters on like a white cross beam in this warehouse dock situation as the killer gets away. So the killer gets away, they're able to rescue the woman. The woman is then able to identify the identity of the killer and it's like confirmed and all this other stuff. And then they start finding out that the killer actually was Boggs' accomplice for an earlier crime. So there's even more kind of points in favor of Boggs is making this whole thing up. He's just trying to get one final kill before he goes to the gas chamber. Mulder, however, is in the hospital because he's been shot and he's not doing too well. He's kind of touch and go. This is amplifying Scully's anxieties and everything that she's kind of going through right now because she's really going through quite a lot of grief. I mean, just lost her father. She has a very complicated relationship with, and I think what happens after that is that she has a meeting with Boggs where Boggs tells her, "I want a deal. I Your father is here. You can talk to your father, but no one is talking to anyone until I get a deal and I can avoid this gas chamber. So go look for this guy." And eventually they kind of realize like, okay, so this is where this guy is. This is where he's keeping the other like college student that he had kidnapped, this other boy. So we're gonna go get him. But Boggs says before that, Dana, I want you to be there as my witness when they put me in the gas chamber. Like your father will then speak to you as my final words. And Dana is kind of like torn between like, do I go? Do I stay? She also had kind of like an argument with Boggs where, she accused him of like, you were trying to entrap us and you were trying to kill Mulder. And I swear to God, I'm going to be the one to flick the switch myself if Mulder actually dies. And I thought that was also tremendous. Gillian Anderson is such an incredible performer, even 30 years ago, and she just gets more talented every year. But um, by the end of it, they're able to find the college student. Boggs warned Dana, keep on calling her Dana in this episode, warned Scully that there's a Blue Devil brewery. So you got to watch out for the devil. Do not follow in this killer's footsteps. I will bring the killer to the devil myself. And sure enough, they find this college student. The guy is trying to escape. Dana follows him into this one room, and the guy is running over some rickety, like wooden bridge platform situation that's in front of a Blue Devil logo, like a Blue Devil Brewery logo. and the wood is rotten and it collapses beneath this guy and then he falls to his death. And sure enough, Scully does not follow him, does not meet a similar fate. And then there's kind of this moment where it's like we're watching Boggs walk to the gas chamber and he's seen all of the family members that he killed, all of the people who have died because of him, murders that they've committed, and he's starting to feel that fear that they felt when they were killed. And then eventually he goes to the gas chamber and he looks out there and he doesn't see Scully. And then I did not know that they like the mechanism that they use to actually like ignite the gas chamber. Um that was kind of a crazy thing to see. It also just made me think of like, God, I can't believe we kill people in this country like legally. That's insane. But that's neither here nor there. That's a different episode. We'll save that for Fear Coded. But yeah, we find out that Scully did not go see Boggs. She went instead to go see Mulder. She tells Mulder, like, look, Boggs could have planned this whole thing. He could have known that my dad was in the Air Force or whatever, the Navy. He could have found out all of this information. He could have found out what their wedding song was. So I chose to come to you. And Mulder says something about like, well, didn't you want to know what your like whether your dad was proud of you or something like that? Because that was something that Scully was really grappling with throughout the episode. And when she asked her mother at the funeral, the mother said he was your father. And then when Mulder asked her, like, don't you want to know that he was proud of you? That's what she says too, is that he was her father. And that's kind of all the confirmation she needs. And that's how the episode wraps.
Yes. Thank you. Um, yeah, this one's interesting because usually we see Scully put in danger, and then Mulder is sort of like White Knight who's like, "If you hurt Scully," but we get the reverse where she really like is really upset about Mulder being injured and like yelling at Boggs. And this is the first time we really see her that way, I think, in the series. And also, I think it's interesting that at the end, the things that Boggs sort of uses the devil thing to really. He thinks that will be the thing that will make her believe for sure, and she uses it as a means to say, like, well, if he knew, then he would have warned his accomplice too. So he was he was a fraud or he was working with the accomplice and sort of side with Mulder. It just kind of gives her that out to like not actually believe.
Mhm. I'm kind of curious because then she even says like, "Oh yeah, that vision I had, that's pretty common for people to see deceased family members." She does the whole Scully thing of I'm gonna logic my way out of this.
Right.
Um, do you think by the end of the episode though she does still kind of think that Boggs might have been psychic?
For sure. I think this is sort of like her moment of like, okay, maybe Mulder's not nuts. I think this is the big one because I think in some of the things she's really willing to go with Mulder and be like, okay, yeah, the evidence is also leading here, so I can get on board. But I think this is the first time where she is forced to like decide on her own if she believes because Mulder doesn't. And I think that she does at the end of the day believe, and she's just not willing to admit that to herself.
Hmm. I really like that too. Like, not to get too fear coded, but like, there's a lot of like gender upset in this episode with who is believing in what because like I think one of the reasons why the X Files was initially so interesting and immediately engaging to people was that there was kind of this reversal of roles because normally it's the woman who is like the more the spiritual person, the one who's willing to believe in the supernatural, and the man is the one to kind of be the scientist and logic the way out of it. And their dynamics are flipped. And then here in this episode, we have another instance of that where the dynamics are flipped back to something that would be more traditional of Scully now is the believer, Mulder is the skeptic. But I think Ben, you brought up an interesting point about like Mulder's normally the white knight in this show anyway, and Scully is always either in danger or unconscious or just not there to see the supernatural element, especially in the first season. And I think it's interesting that she becomes kind of like a white knight heroine for Mulder, but she is still kind of in this more spiritual feminine mode. So it's kind of like an interesting mixture of gender roles and who is supposed to be in what. And I think that's part of what makes this episode so gripping because um I did a little bit of research, like really cursory stuff. And I saw like this was a very well received episode at the time, not like super killer ratings in terms of viewership, but at least outside of the norm for the X Files at this time. Um, but it's still, like, very well received, and I think part of that is also, not just, like, let's see the characters in a different dynamic than normal, but also Brad Dourif is here as Boggs, and Brad Dourif is very well known among, Glitterjaw audiences. He's the voice of Chucky the doll in the Child's Play movies. He's in a couple other series and movies. He was Wormtongue in Lord of the Rings. And then he was just in the first season of The Pit because his daughter is one of the main characters. So he's a very famous character actor. And honestly, Ben, when you asked me like what episode of the X-Files would I want to come on for, this was the one that really stood out in my mind because I want to talk about like, god damn, like Brad Dourif is it gives like such a great performance in this role. And it's so interesting to see like they could have just totally had him copy like Anthony Hopkins and Hannibal Lecter and be like really cool and chill when he's having these kind of episodes and be kind of unnerving that way. But they went like total opposite. They went hard. I'm motioning you to the right, but they went hard to the left turn here with like, no, we want you to be like really emotive and expressive, and we want you to do things with your eyes and like make your face change colors because you're like breathing so hard. I think that was such a fantastic idea and such a great way for him to give that performance. Um, so like this is an incredible episode for me. So I'm really happy to talk about like the things that influenced it and what we can watch beyond this too.
Yeah, when I asked and you said you wanted to do this one, this is a lot of people's favorite, and a lot of people really like this episode. I like it. I find it hard to watch because of his performance is
Mm,
so it's just really heavy. Like,
yeah.
he's this person who is taking lives, and, like, the reason he's being executed is because Mulder has stated, like, he just enjoys killing. He just wants to kill people and living things, and, like, he's never gonna stop, but he's just so afraid of death and dying himself, and those moments where he's talking about that with Scully, it's just really intense, and it's, like, heavy, and it's kinda too much at some points for me where I'm just like, "This is a lot." Like, "Sir, this is a Wendy's." Like,
Yeah.
I just wanna
I
I just
definitely feel that way too sometimes. Like I told you earlier I've only seen this episode twice. Um the second time I watched it was yesterday to get ready for today's recording, and, like, I am totally there with you, like, on the one hand, I'm just like, "God, he's, like, really giving it," but he's, like, giving it so much that it, like, is kind of, like, uncomfortable, and I think that's, like, no shade against Brad Dourif. If anything, it's, like, the complete opposite, for me at least. I feel like to give, I think it's always, like very commonly applauded whenever an actor is just like, "Wow, they moved me to tears," or "They really scared the shit out of me." His performance is like so physical that it actually makes me feel like a little bit repulsed because he is doing so many things where it's just like something else is taking control of his body, right? Like this is not something that he would normally be doing, and I think that is kind of part of what makes it so uncomfy to watch too.
100%. Like, it's a perfect performance. Like, maybe the best in season 1, but, like, it's also so good that it's like, "Eek."
It's kinda like a filet mignon. Like, you can't afford to eat a filet mignon every night, but every once in a while, it's good. That's how I would feel about, like, if I were to do, like, a big X-Files rewatch and this was something I watched all the time, I would be like, "I don't know if I'm feeling Beyond the Sea today." I'm
Right.
kind of like, I don't want something to bum me out or bring me down or make me feel icked.
Yeah. It's a heavy episode.
Mhm.
You also mentioned sort of gender stuff going on. His Boggs is pretty effeminate in a lot of ways too, which is again not great because there's all this like serial killer representation mixed with like effeminate and transness sometimes that's like not cool. But
Mhm.
just interesting to bring up, I thought maybe since we were talking about sort of the gender roles within Scully and Mulder, we see yet again this sort of idea of like the effeminate serial killer guy.
Yeah, and I mean, like he also, at one point, like, tries to prove that he's the real thing by kinda channeling a Scully memory of her, like, going out and sneaking a cigarette, and
Oh,
Scully's
right.
just like, "Oh, well, that could have been a story from any kid's life." And but, like, the when he's doing it, he's kinda acting like a 14-year-old girl, like, he's pulling out his hair and his voice is a lot softer, and to me, that was also kind of uncomfortable, and I think it is because, like, there is a mixing of the genders there and or, like, gender performances that I think just kinda, like, we are uncomfortable with as a Western society still, and even if you're, like, queer as hell like we are, I think sometimes when that is being presented and we kinda know, like, the context behind it, like, this guy is a serial killer and he's doing something effeminate, I think that kinda makes us a little bit more uncomfortable because there's, like, an otherness to what we're seeing, and we're scared of that, and I think for it to also be, like, the serial killer is the one doing it, I think it's exactly like you said, Ben. It is kind of like, ooh, because that is such a common motivation for serial killers that a lot of, like, the really big slasher or psycho, type of films to kinda lean towards that, but I do think that they're able to skirt that by and large, with this. I didn't feel like there was, like, transphobia going on in it, um, but I do think it is, like, part of the complexity of Dourif's performance that he chose to do things the way he did, and I think that's fascinating about this episode.
Right. I agree. I think X-Files somehow does things like this that don't feel judgmental in any way. Like,
Mhm,
it's just that's just who Boggs is or who Dorf decided to present him as, but, like, without unpacking it too much, it never feels, like, judgmental or like they're doing something put a certain type of people into a bad light. It
mhm.
just seems like a choice that was made. And I think the X-Files tends to do that pretty well.
Yeah, I think so too, especially because, like, I think the gold standard for, like, "Wow, this is aged perfectly," is, funny enough, we talked about Twin Peaks, but when David Duchovny appeared as they didn't call her a trans woman at the time, but Duchovny's performance of Denise was like, oh, she went undercover as a woman and then realized that this is something that she actually did want it, so she just kinda keeps doing it, and everyone just accepted that as the truth. Like, they gave her a look at first, and then it was like, "Oh, facts. Okay, let's keep going." And then, of course, like, 20 years later in Twin Peaks: The Return, we see that, Denise is now, like, the head of the FBI, fully confident trans woman. That's where we get "Fix Your Hearts or Die." So to me, that's, like, the kind of the gold standard, and I think David Lynch was always a very loving and empathetic person. And so I could trust him with that sort of presentation. With this, I think the X Files also is surprisingly good about that, but there are definitely elements of like gender and stuff that have aged poorly. Like the Gender Better episode is one of those episodes that's just like, oh boy. But otherwise, like yeah, I think by and large a lot of things in the X Files age better than you would expect.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something. I think it sort of comes from the same spirit as David Lynch of like we want to include these things because we find them interesting, but it's not like negative. It's not like a negative thing,
It's not like they're being put on like a freak show,
right?
which I appreciate because I think other procedural shows would very much happily do that,
For sure,
for gender differentiation and representation of that.
definitely, just for shock value.
Mhm.
Um, okay, so let's talk about some movies. So
Yeah.
there weren't there aren't a lot of themes here that are beyond just like fear of death or something like that. So I figured we could just maybe talk about sort of the elephant in the room, which is psychic people and serial killers. And there's a lot. I watch a lot of not great psychic serial killer movies that I'm looking forward to talking about. Um, but if you'd like to start, we can talk about just serial killer movies first. We can talk about psychic.
I've been, like, really excited to talk about, like, the serial killer stuff, because I really don't know anything about the psychic killer stuff.
Okay,
Um, so I think, like, the big one, if it's okay to talk about it first, is Silence of the Lambs,
right.
because I think that's, like the genesis of the idea for this episode, you know?
Yes, I didn't, put Silence of the well, I did, but Silence of the Lambs, I feel like I talk about this movie, like, every episode because it's so hard to get away from. Because, like you said, she's very, Clarice coded. What about Silence of the Lambs, like, is it, like, the first thing that stood out for you while watching this episode?
Honestly, yeah, like, even more than the psychic stuff, which I'm, like I don't know any movies about, like, the psychic is helping the killer except for Long Legs, I guess. And even that's kinda, like, up for debate of how psychic she was, but the whole like, the FBI is relying on a criminal that is extremely dangerous to tell them about another criminal who is also extremely dangerous, and they're on a clock to find the victims so that they don't get murdered. I think that is, like that's kinda like the elephant in the room, you know, that is, like, the big thing that's very difficult to avoid, and like I said earlier, I think it was such a great idea to have Dorif come in who is a very talented character actor and really have him go like balls to the walls extreme with his performance when Anthony Hopkins was so deliberately understated and even toned. I think was a great idea.
For sure. So, it's interesting to me that you that's the first place you went because it is when you mention now that you've said that, it's like, "Oh, yeah, that is the, like, obvious first thing," but for me, the scene where the kids are being abducted from the car is so Zodiac coded. Have you seen Zodiac?
I have seen Zodiac, yeah.
It's like it's just so that the first place my brain went to is like, "Oh, Zodiac." And then, like, in my head, there's just this endless list of, like, 90s serial killer movies, which I tried to, like, narrow down or, find all of them that would be on this list, and there aren't as many as I thought there were. But, yeah, I just feel like in the '90s, there were so many serial killer movies where, like, the detective was trying to find this really smart serial killer that's so smart that they can't be caught, which is all Silence of the Lambs, like Silence of the Lambs is the movie. It came out in 1991. The books came out before then, but that's sort of like where we got this idea that we can't let go of, that there are these people out there that are killing people that are so smart they just can't be caught, which I don't think is the case very often.
No. No, in fact, it's kind of the opposite, I think. A lot of these times, these serial killers are very obvious, but they get away with it because of, like, institutional racism and sexism and, incompetency of police and the state. It's not that these guys are super fucking geniuses or whatever. A lot of the time, they're not. Um, it's just, like the ones that kinda stick out in your brain are the ones that I think are, like, either the most heinous or the most charismatic, or the press gave them, like, a cutesy nickname or whatever. Like, the BTK killer, that is, like, so like, one of the big ones, and the Night Stalker, like, hello, like, fucking calling someone a Night Stalker, are you kidding me? Like, that's such a crazy fucking nickname to give a serial killer, and it's inappropriate to do that and all that, but I think the idea of a super genius who could avoid all the cops, like a Hannibal Lecter or, Seven, because Seven, I think, is one of those movies that you're talking about where it was, like, a very 90s, very serial killer, "How do we find this guy before he kills more people?" kinda movie, but I also agree with you, it feels like there were a lot of these types of movies in the '90s and early 2000s, and just a lot of, like, thrillers, like, the '90s was a good time for to make a thriller.
For sure. Yeah, in my head and when I was making this list, things like, Double Jeopardy, anything with Ashley Judd in it, really.
Anything with Ashley Judd. That's how she was buying a house, like, good for her, girl, get that paper in the '90s.
Yeah, anything with Morgan Freeman or Ashley Judd, like Sandra Bullock did, like, The Net and all the, like, John Grisham stuff, like, all of that in my head is, like, the same thing.
Mhm.
Um, and I think as I was looking through this list, like, you're right, it does get into, like, the early 2000s to mid 2000s, and I think that's when true crime became more of a thing, and also when these sort of procedurals we started getting it on TV, and they stopped making as many movies about them, I think. I would assume for that reason, just because we were getting it on TV, or people were obsessed with, like, the true crime version of it.
Mm.
Um, but maybe they just stopped making money, I don't know, but I think
I think it's honestly, Ben, I think it's both. I think you're right. Like, I think people were kind of getting that drive for like true crime from like podcasts started becoming a thing in the mid 2000s. There was 24-hour TV, there was court TV, there were big court cases going on, like Casey Anthony in the early 2000s. So it was kind of like you don't have to go to the movie theater to watch like a murder story. You can stay in the comfort of your home and put on the first 48 or Dateline or um, Casey Anthony and what's her name? Nancy Grace. My mother fucking loved Nancy Grace and she would fall asleep to Nancy Grace on the TV and I'm just like, this is going to like kill you. She's an insane bad person who's doing all of this shit for ratings. But I guess that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I feel like that's a really good like observation. I That kind of makes me also think too, like maybe that's part of the reason why the X-Files started to decline in like popularity and in our cultural conversation because we were kind of moving away from like this is safely in fiction or in the past to now it's kind of happening in real life and I have very easy 24-hour access to it all the time. So I don't need to watch my police procedural to get it until you start getting like, I don't know, Blue Bloods or some shit where it's like every week is a killer of the week. Bones and Criminal Minds and all that shit. Like all of them were like, okay, well, you don't have to go spend money at the movie theater, sit there for 2 hours. You can watch it for 44 minutes and get advertised for like Aspercream at the same time.
right. Yeah, so on this list, I put Criminal Minds because I got on a really big Criminal Minds kick a couple years ago and watched a bunch of it, but it was because I was in the mood to watch these kind of 90s serial killer movies, and Criminal Minds will scratch that itch, and it's
Really?
like a 40-minute episode, like, every epi have you watched Criminal Minds at all?
I've actually never seen a single episode.
It's basically like a 90s serial killer movie every episode.
Okay.
So, they're just a bunch of FBI profilers that are hunting serial killers. It's the kind of, like, not great TV that's just fun to binge.
Hmm.
So but it'll scratch this itch for me when I'm in the mood. Um, I don't know if you wanna just talk about some serial killer movies. Uh,
Uh, yeah, like I mean, there's like Long Legs I mentioned earlier. Also, is like very much like kind of the modern day version of like an X Files episode or like a Criminal Minds um, type of thing. But it also is like very artful and it has like a very bold aesthetic that when you're watching it, you're like, I'm not watching any other type of movie. I'm watching Long Legs. Whereas I think like a CBS crime procedural, they all kind of look alike. It's just are they in Hawaii or are they in LA? You know, it's that's really the kind of the only difference is the backdrop. Uh, but Longlegs felt so like profoundly different, and because I guess because it was willing to go so dark with what it was trying to do. And I think nowadays too, we live in an era of very bold aesthetics in film, but also in more like homegrown kind of videos and stuff. Because like Backrooms is like the newest movie, and that is a very well received movie, but it started off life as a YouTube video series. And even before that, it was on the Something Awful forums, or maybe I'm mixing that up with Slenderman. Maybe it was 4chan, but it doesn't matter. Either way, it started off as something that was like very visually distinctive. And I think kind of visuals are the things that are like the big sort of attention getter nowadays. So like, does it look really interesting? Does it look really cool? Does it looks like something that I haven't seen before? And that's what really draws people in. Whereas like, I don't know, like in the 90s, it was like beautiful people on screen. Watch the beautiful people on screen. In the 2000s, it was like, wow, look at how great the CGI is. Look at how big the explosions are, how epic the movie is. And before that, I think it was, is the story good? Is the actors good? Have I been watching this actor my entire life? I'm going to keep watching them. Um, and I think something that has like a really bold aesthetic is something that people appreciate more in their art, because so much of the shit that we see nowadays is very like sanded down. Everything is like sans serif font, simplistic, minimalist because of fascism. And that's like the aesthetics of fascism. And it's just bad. So when something is good and different and interesting, you immediately glom onto it, which I guess is perhaps another reason why the X Files is popular today, is because that also has a very visually distinctive vibe to the show. Like the intro alone is so iconic, probably one of the most iconic TV show intros of all time. And I think like for people nowadays, especially like younger people, I think having like a really interesting visual aesthetic to your like TV show intro, boy howdy, people tune into that and do not press the skip intro button.
Yeah. I really like Long Legs, I think, um, so it was written directed by Osgood Perkins, who's done quite a few movies now, and he has a very distinct aesthetic that I can't really put my finger on or, like, describe in a way that makes sense, but, like, you know it when you see it kinda thing.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
think Longlegs is his most effective at doing the aesthetic in a way that feels purposeful, and, I think Longlegs also we talked about Silence of the Lambs and Seven, and I think those are kind of the 2 movies that made the rules for what a serial killer movie is supposed to be now, and they also kind of snuck in horror movies into the like, a wider audience, because they're both horror movies, and people don't think of them as horror movies, and Longlegs is sort of the same. Um, where it is a horror movie and people sort of know that, but they also think people who aren't into horror are more willing to like watch it. But I I do have a hot take with as far as Osgood Perkins go. I think that The Monkey is his best work, and I think that he needs to do more of that like bonkers off the wall horror because I think he's just his aesthetic fits it much better than this like very serious thing that he's always trying to do. But I won't get on that tangent. But yeah, I really like Long Legs. I watched a movie, it's from this year, 2026, called Psycho Killer, which is like calling a movie that is kind of crazy, but it's just so generic. But
Mhm.
it's about this dude who, like, this woman who's hunting a serial killer who happened to kill her husband. They're both cops and she's hunting this guy and he's like doing it for Satan and it's like got all this weird like Satan stuff in it. But it was actually really good. Like as I was watching, I was like, this is not that great. But I kind of couldn't stop thinking about it after I watched it. Like the visuals of it
Ooh.
are really good.
Yeah.
Um, and it reminds me of Long Legs a little bit. Like it's not as aesthetically pleasing as Long Legs, like, but the visuals in it are really good. So I recommend that if you're into these
Okay.
kind of serial killer movies. It's not quite a serial killer movie as much as some of these others maybe, but it was good. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll add that to my letterbox. I love a story where someone is trying to find the serial killer. Like we haven't touched on that part too much, but yes, I do love these kinds of movies.
Yes.
I love like a serial killer movie. I'm running a game, like a tabletop RPG with some friends of mine online, called Delta Green, which is a tabletop game that's kind of like Call of Cthulhu, which is another very big time tabletop game. But you're trying to like stop these Lovecraftian entities from killing people and driving people insane and destroying the world. But it's like a mystery game, so you're kind of trying to build yourself up there. Delta Green, you are basically kind of like a Mulder and Scully or a True Detective kind of situation where you work for a conspiracy within the US government called Delta Green, and your job is to go out, find these cosmic horrors and cosmic horror influences in the world or in the United States and like stop it by any means necessary. And you're very secretive. There's a great gameplay feature in there where when you take sanity loss, you can actually put that onto an emotional bond that you have with like a family member, friend, a friend group, an organization that you're a part of. And that relationship actually gets damaged because of the impact from your missions for Delta Green. And that felt very real to me and very human to me. And like I think the X-Files is really interesting when we're talking about Delta Green because a lot of people assume that it's the same thing, but really in Delta Green, you're kind of playing the men in black, like the people who are working for the cigarette smoking man, trying to stop Mulder and Scully's from finding out and revealing the truth because that's actually bad. But because of that passion that I have for these like serial killer movies or movie where like someone is like kind of like a fucked up individual is trying to find a more fucked up individual that's out there killing people. I love that kind of story. Like a cab, but like a detective out in the woods and it's rainy in the Pacific Northwest and they're looking at a dead body. Chef's kiss. That is really good.
Right. Same. Delta Green, that sounds really cool. I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, it's really cool. I encourage everyone to look into that. I'm running a game now where the King in Yellow, which is not a Lovecraft entity, but it is part of the wider mythos, is a major focus in it. And I've driven my players insane. One of them killed his adoptive dad, so that's
Wow.
been fun. Yeah,
That sounds really cool. You're the first person to recommend a game, so that's awesome. I'm gonna
yeah.
have to
You definitely check that out. So that's a tabletop game. So you play with other people and you roll dice, kind of like Dungeons and Dragons. But I like it more than D&D. I think D&D is actually not a very good game, but that's for a Glitter Jaw Presents episode. Um, but yeah, it's a good time. It's a good game. But part of the reason why I really love running it is in addition to I love those types of movies, but I also just kind of love like a good mystery and the X-Files and movies that inspire the X-Files and movies that were inspired by the X-Files, when they're good because they have such a really good mystery. Um, so I love a serial killer movie, but Ben, I'm honestly like super interested in the psychic link to killer subgenre because I know like Jack and shit and Jack Left Town about these kinds of movies.
okay. Yeah, let's I could just tell you about some if you like.
Yeah, sure.
So the ones I watched, the first I wanted to mention is called Red Lights, which is there's nothing about a serial killer here. I thought there was, but I watched it. It's got and the thing about all these movies is the casts are amazing. Like everyone on screen you have seen somewhere else, which is crazy, but the movies are not very good. I just thought that was kind of interesting. That like
Hmm.
all these casts are great, but like this movie is bonkers. So Red Lights from 2012 has Sigourney Weaver, it has Killian Murphy, Elizabeth Olsen, Robert De Niro. So Sigourney Weaver she's a professor, and what she does is she just debunks like people who are psychic or like claim to have some kind of supernatural ability. She just debunks them, and she works at the weirdest college I've ever seen, because that's all she does. Like her class is just teaching people how to debunk psychics, which I don't
Okay.
think is a real class that exists.
She probably works
Um,
at the same college that the Ghostbusters were kicked out of because they were just like, "Well, we could teach people how to find ghosts, but that we don't got the money for that anymore, so get the fuck out of here."
right. Um, and also at this college, she has like no money and gets no funding, but the department that gets all the funding is the department that's doing research to prove that these kind of things exist. So again, I don't know what kind of college this is, but
Very
Gillian
strange.
Murphy is he's a physicist who is her assistant who helps her debunk this stuff. Robert De Niro is a blind psychic who is retired and has come out of retirement, and like Killian Murphy is like, we have to debunk this dude. And Sigourney Weaver is like, we can't stay away from him because she has a son who had something happen to him as a kid. And now he's basically a grown man in a coma. At one point, Robert De Niro, like on a talk show, like brought up her dead son and she like really kind of lost it. So she's like, stay away from him. And then she dies. Spoiler alert.
No.
Yeah. So
Well, now
Gillian
I hate
Murphy,
this movie.
yeah, he's like obsessed with debunking Robert De Niro. Um, and then stuff happens. So I don't want to give away the ending.
Well, I'm
But
never like I think that's valid, but now that I know that Sigourney Weaver dies in it, who is the literally the banner on my blue sky. I can't do it. She's Mother. I can't
I'm
watch Mother
sorry.
die.
I shouldn't have told you. Um,
No, I'm glad that you did. Otherwise, it would have had a horrible surprise that would have held it against you forever.
yeah. Um, and then there's The Gift, which I just watched. Is a 2000 movie. Sam Raimi directed this, and
Okay.
Billy Bob Thornton co-wrote it. It's got
Okay.
Kate Blanchett,
Okay.
uh, Keanu Reeves, Greg Kinnear. There's another actress in it whose name I can't remember, who you would immediately recognize. J.K.
Mhm.
Simmons is in it. He's the sheriff. So again, a cast that's like crazy. Like everyone on screen, you recognize immediately. And this is just about Kate Blanchett, who's a psychic, and she has 3 kids, and her husband has died, so she kind of supports them by giving readings, psychic readings to people. Keanu Reeves doesn't want his wife. He's like abusive to his wife. He's like a really shitty person in this movie.
Boo.
Yeah. So he's like abusing his wife and doesn't want her to come see the psychic. So he's now like threatening her and her kids because he
Jesus.
thinks she's like a witch. A woman goes missing. Katie Holmes is goes missing, and
Oh my god,
then
who is it in this movie?
everyone is in this movie.
Yeah. Holy
I'm
shit.
assuming, yeah, I'm assuming everyone is like Sam Raimi is involved. So of course, I'll be in this movie, but
True,
who
true.
knows? So she is trying to help the police find Katie Holmes because her father comes to her and is like, I don't really believe all this, but can you help us find my daughter? And she does. And then, like, it gets progressively worse from there. So lots of twists and turns on this movie. It's not really scary at all, but none of these movies are really scary or even horror movies, but they do have a lot of psychics in them.
Hmm.
Uh,
Okay.
there's there's one from 1995 called Hideaway, and I have no idea why it's called Hideaway, but it has Jeff Goldblum and his daughter is Alicia Silverstone.
Oh my
Jeremy
god.
Sisto is the killer in this one.
I don't know anything about 90s Hollywood or anything, I guess, because I'm just like, did they just have these actors on retainer? Like, you just pull them out of the refrigerator. It's just like, all right, we're going to put Alicia Silverstone in this. Let's add a little bit of Jeff Goldblum in. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
no clue. Oh, Alfred Molino?
Yeah.
Mol he's
Melina.
Molina, he's in this one, and basically this is, Jeff Goldblum dies in a car accident at the beginning of the movie. He's dead for, like, 2 hours, and Alfred Molina the doctor, has this procedure that he can do to bring people back from the dead. And then Jeff Goldblum, because of this, is psychically linked to a serial killer and he's like seeing him. He realizes that if he inflicts pain upon himself, he can like get into the mind. So they're psychically linked and they become aware of this. The killer wants to get Alicia Silverstone because he keeps seeing her in Jeff Goldblum's mind.
Hmm.
So this one was eh, maybe the worst and best. There are like CGI demons and angels.
Ooh, in
So,
1995.
yeah.
Oh
So
boy.
that either is a big selling point or it's a reason to stay away depending on your
Hmm.
personality. But yeah, um, there's In Dreams from 1999. Hopefully, I'm not boring you with all these.
No,
So, okay.
no.
um, In Dreams, this is the one with Annette Bening, and she has a psychic connection with the serial killer who is played by Robert Downey Jr. Her
Okay.
husband is Aidan Quinn.
That one I don't know.
He was Sandra Bullock's love interest in Practical Magic.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Heard. Got it.
Uh, and yeah, she starts to have dreams of this killer, and no one believes her, and she's trying to stop the serial killer, who is Robert Downey Jr., who
Hmm.
also dresses like a woman for like no reason.
So we're back to the whole gender with serial killers thing.
Right.
And like, obviously, dressing as a woman makes you a killer, or at
Right.
least all killers are doing that. The most
Right.
diabolical ones. How dare they?
Yeah. So this one's not didn't age well.
No.
And I don't think they even explain why he does that. He's just like in lipstick and a wig, trying to like play mom with this little girl. It's very weird.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
like that.
yeah. So Suspect Zero is one I just watched from 2004. And this one has Ben Kingsley and who's the other man? Oh, Aaron Eckhart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's like an FBI agent who has been sort of demoted because he like lost his temper and beat up some suspect because ACAB. And Big Ben Kingsley is a psychic who, well, he has psychic powers because he was experimented on by the government. um, and he is yeah, there's a lot going on in this movie.
Yeah.
Trinity from The Matrix is Aaron Eckhart's partner. I don't
Mhm.
remember her name.
Carrie
Uh,
Moss.
yes, and there are other people in this movie that I recognize who are bigger now than they were then. But basically, Ben Kingsley is psychically trying to find this serial killer that they have dubbed Suspect Zero because he cannot be found because he's just roaming around America killing random people. So there's
Mhm.
no like MO that we see in all these other serial killer movies that would like help them find him. And Aaron Eckhart is like losing it because he believes in Ben Kingsley and like also somehow is psychic, even though he wasn't experimented on by the
Okay.
government. Um, and so everyone else is like, this is insane. I guess he's not psychic. Ben Kingsley's not psychic as much as he can like see the future. So he like does this weird thing where he like writes words and listens to sounds and then he can see the future. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
Maybe it might make more sense if you watch it, but maybe
I
not.
think, kind of describing this movie and knowing it came out in 2004, I feel like we're answering our question from earlier of, like, why do these movies kinda go away?
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
of like, the movies that we talked about today do you think is, like, your favorite?
Probably Zodiac. Like if I and I know it's slightly problematic because it's based on real things that happened,
Mhm.
but if you can sort of ignore that, I guess, it's
Yeah.
one of the better serial killer movies. Like it's actually creepy. I think if I'm in the mood for like a serial killer movie, Zodiac's sort of the first one that comes to mind that's like
Mm.
this is what I'm looking for. Although Long Legs might take that place or like Criminal Minds. Which is your favorite?
Um, God, I am so as far as, like, the psychic movies that we've talked about, I am really interested in this Hideaway, just because it sounds bonkers. It sounds bonkers as hell. Sigourney Weaver does not die in it, and, there's no weird transphobia, so I'll check out Hideaway. Um, for the serial killer movies, I do really like Zodiac. I do really like Long Legs. I think I'm gonna have to give it to Silence of the Lambs, though. Like, I really like that was kinda, like, always my favorite. I love Jodie Foster in that. That one has had, some transgender politics in it that have not aged very well either. Even though they say, like, the killer is not a trans person, like, the it's kinda weird. The gender stuff in that movie is weird, but I still think it's great. I love that movie. Anthony Hopkins gives an incredible performance. Um, this is kind of like the rock upon which we build our serial killer movies, and so I kind of am always gonna like that as a result. But I'll tell you what though, I am interested in watching any Ashley Judd and Morgan Freeman solving crimes. I have actually never really watched any of those, so I got to get on that.
Yeah, Kiss the Girls and Along Came a Spider, which I didn't realize was I thought they were 2 separate movies, but I guess Along Came a Spider is a sequel for
Whoa,
Kiss the Girls.
I did not know that
Um,
either.
they're not like, they're standalone. They just have the
Hmm.
same main character, I believe, Morgan
Mm.
Freeman. Have you seen Copycat from 1995 with
No,
Sigourney Weaver? It's like a
no.
Sigourney Weaver is I believe she's an author, but she's like a agoraphobic. She doesn't leave her house or apartment, and there's a serial killer who is I believe killing people based on things in her books. So she's like trying to help, and then the serial killer is after her. But if you're into Sigourney Weaver, you should definitely watch Copycat. It's great.
I love anything Sigourney Weaver, even
Yeah,
the bad stuff.
yeah, Copycat's good.
I haven't
It's
seen the 3rd Avatar, though, so sorry about that one, Sigourney.
I haven't seen any of the Avatars, so
You're not missing much.
I don't think I am, yeah.
Yeah.
Another one I wanted to mention just because is, I'm not even sure how to say this, Phenomena? I'm assuming it's the Italian word for
Phenomena?
phenomenon,
Yeah.
from 1985. This is Jennifer Connelly. It's a Argento film. It's it's got, the dude that plays Dr. Loomis in the Halloween franchise.
Okay.
He's in this as well, but in this, there's a serial killer who is, like, abducting girls from this town where Jennifer Connelly has just moved to go to this boarding school, and she discovers that she has a psychic link with bugs, and the bugs help her to find the serial killer.
Movie I will never, ever, ever watch.
Do you not like bugs?
I really don't like bugs.
Okay. Well,
They
yeah,
creep me out.
you would not like this because this is all about, like, I don't know the actor's name, the guy who plays Dr. Loomis. He is like an entomologist, so he's like, bugs are so cool. So there's bugs everywhere. He's also got a pet chimp for some reason in this movie. It's a great movie. It's just kind of bonkers and the soundtrack is amazing. But if you're into like 80s weird horror
I
and
actually have
also
not really
bugs,
watched
but
any Argento or Giallo horror movies. That's like a big blind spot of mine. So,
same.
okay. I don't think I'm gonna start with Phenomena because of the
Yeah.
bugs. Maybe I'll go find, Suspiria streaming somewhere.
Yeah. Something less buggy.
Yeah.
Suspiria is great. And I
Yeah.
think, like, to bring us back to, serial killers, I think most Argento, like, giallo films are basically serial killer movies.
Hmm, okay. I guess that's true. I've only seen the newer Suspiria, um, so I don't really know too much about, anything in the original except it has such a great fucking soundtrack.
It's great. Yeah, I think it's sort of different than most giallo films. I think most giallo films are, like, closer to, like, slasher serial killer movies.
Interesting. Okay.
But it's also a blind spot for me, so who knows?
We'll have to fix that.
Yeah, for sure.
Next time we have you on Fear Coded, we'll make sure. I'll do a test.
Okay,
I'll do a means test of, like, have you watched enough giallo films, Ben?
okay. That I'll probably fail.
So
Anyways, any other things that you might wanna talk about as far as, like, psychic or serial killers go?
I mean, not really. I do like that Longlegs does have a little bit of that psychic connection to it. Like, they're kind of relying on the main character with some, like, I think they say it's like 52% psychic proficiency, and it's just like, well, that's not she's not very psychic then, is she? She's just guessing really nicely. But and then you find out like the whole reason why she has some special abilities. That was a trip for me. I don't know how I feel about the end of Longlegs. Honestly, I'm still kind of wrestling with it, but that's a story for another day. Now, Ben, this was so much fun. I really loved getting to talk about these movies. Now I feel like I've got some new stuff to add to my letterbox. So I'm really excited to dig into that now.
Nice. I always hope that people will listen or leave our conversations with more stuff to watch, and I
Hell yeah.
like to too, and I'm definitely gonna check out Green Delta. That sounds amazing.
Delta Green.
Delta Green, that's what I meant.
Yeah. Okay.
Um And yes, so in Red Light, Sigourney Weaver at one point, like the doctor who runs the like, we're proving that this stuff exists, he comes to her and is like, we've got someone, he's actually psychic. And she's like, how do you know it? And he's like, well, I'm showing you these cards and you can read them accurately every time. And she does it in front of him just there. And she's like, well, he's looking at the reflection in your glasses. So that made me think of the 52% psychic.
It's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me to talk about Beyond the Sea. This was a fun episode, and I'm so glad that you got to talk to me about it. Would you like to tell us where we can find you online?
Yeah. So again, I'm one of the co-hosts of Fear Coded. If you haven't heard about Fear Coded right yet, we are a podcast where we take a look at any media from the horror genre, whether it be a movie, single episode of a TV show, podcasts, books, video games. We cover them all and look at it through the lens of queer theory. We've been doing it for almost 2 years now. I think it might actually be 2 years by the time you're listening to this. But it's been a blast. We've had Ben on before. We will have Ben on again. It's definitely something that you should check out. It's another podcast with the Glitterjaw Collective. You can also find me on Blue Sky at Call Up the Dead, and you'll find me posting memes, tabletop RPG thoughts, horror movie things, and the like. So give me a check out on Blue Sky as well.
Awesome. Yeah, Fear Coded is really great. If you're into horror, I'm assuming you are. If you're listening to this show, you will probably enjoy Fear Coded. You're my first Fear Coded because you guys all picked episodes that happened really late. Um,
Really?
yeah, I reached out to all three of you when I started Little Dead Aliens, but you all wanted to do episodes that happened really late. So I was like, okay, that's fine.
And then there was me who
Yeah.
picked the first season.
Yeah. Well, they're all in the first season, they're just late. I think
Oh, okay.
David's next, and then Barely picked one of the last episodes, which is my favorite episode of the season, so,
Awesome.
yeah. So, this has been Little Dead Aliens. My name is Ben. You can find me at Little Dead Aliens on Blue Sky or Instagram. Check out glitterjaw.com, the queer podcasting collective that Tyler and I are both a part of, for more shows that are awesome. And I guess don't get caught by a serial killer. And if you do, I guess hope someone in your life is psychic and can help find you.
It's the
Bye.
real lesson. Bye-bye.
Yeah.